You guys look fantastic. Let me tell you, we have a great time planned for you today here at the Black Health Matters Summit and Expo. And right now, our next session is going to be From Stigma to Strength, Navigating Mental Health in Our Communities. First up, we have Dr. Sarah J. Stewart, the Executive Director of Nora Mental Health. She is a mental health researcher, licensed school counselor, executive leadership coach, and educator with more than 12 years of experience working in higher educational settings in various roles. Dr. Stewart earned her PhD in counseling psychology from Howard University. So give it up for Dr. Stewart. Next, we welcome Diamond Staton Williams, a Charlotte native who is a director for Atrium Health in the Outpatient and Community Care Management Department. She is certified as an American Case Manager, Certified Care Manager Administrator, and Board Certified Nurse Executive. Give it up for Ms. Diamond Staton Williams. Also on the panel is Justin Perry, founder and therapist at Perry Counseling, Healing, and Recovery, where he and his clinical team use talk, art, movement modalities to treat mental health, trauma, and addiction for adolescents and adults ages 12 and up. Please give it up for Mr. Justin Perry. And last but not least, we have Clifford Matthews Jr., who is a therapist at Perry Counseling, Recovery, and Healing. Please give your entire panelists a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well in the room and virtually. So I'm a Diamond Staton Williams. I'm a nurse by background, and this conversation is so very important to me because I grew up with someone with a serious mental health condition in my family, and I think it's always so important for us to talk about mental health in our community. So we're going to get the conversation started, and I want to know from the panel, what do you think, or how do you define stigma, and how does it really show up uniquely in our community?
I'll be glad to take that. So ironically enough, the mission of our practice is promote healing in stigma, right? And so when I think about stigma, what I'm thinking about is the shame, is the way that we can't talk about mental health out loud. We kind of have to whisper about it. Right? It's one of those things whereas in the same way I could recognize that I tore my ACL and I got surgery for it and I can talk plainly about it. When it comes to mental health, it's something that we keep quiet. On a personal level, part of how I became a therapist was originally I dealt with my own depression and anxiety. And so for me, it's one of those things I think it's important to make plain because then it makes it more accessible for other people to be honest about it. I was with my son this week and we went back to Chapel Hill where I went to school, and that was where the episode really hit. And he knew that I had taken time off from school when I was there, but he didn't really know why. And so we were coming back from the basketball game and he said, "So Daddy, why did you take time off?" So we actually had the conversation. This is what was going on with me. This is how I shut down and I had to go home and get counseling and everything else. But this is also what led me to doing what I'm doing now. And so when you look at our practice, you'll see people share a little bit of their own story so people can feel comfortable sharing theirs when they come into our offices.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the personal connection as well. It's so important that we talk to our children about what we are experiencing so they don't feel alone in that. And I can say that is a big shift happening from stigma to strength. What else is happening in this space to transition us from that stigma to strength?
I would say what I see when I work with a lot of college students is this openness and really a need. When I talk to some of my students, there really is a need. They're asking for help. And a lot of them are like, well, I don't know where to go. So even with my own son, when we were talking to him about what we were doing, why we were doing it, he's like, well, how do you even know if you need mental health? Like, what are those signs? And this is a 9-year-old. And so then I have 19-year-olds that are asking the same thing. And so what I see from my college students on a day-to-day basis is like, they're not afraid to ask the question, how can I get help? And this is what I'm dealing with. And a lot of them will say, hey, I'm talking to my friends. And they'll be like, oh man, you'll be all right. Or girl, you got it. And so instead of having this like suck it up type of attitude. They're really looking for a communal space where they can be open and be authentic and be themselves and share what's going on with them. And so I think that's one shift that we're seeing is our young people are growing up with this narrative that it's okay to talk about what is going on, like it's a need. And if you look at social media, there's new platforms between YouTubes. We have Black Girl Therapy podcast, The Pivot. You have athletes talking about what is going on in our community, which I think is helping break the stigma that, hey, it's okay to share what's going on and to get help.
I appreciate that, but especially in community. As we're sitting in Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, okay? Everybody's very familiar with prayer. I know my grandmother always said, pray about it and leave it to God. But then what, right? So how does faith and spirituality just show up in our community, especially in the Black community? And what is the balance between prayer and asking the pastor for additional support and then actually reaching out for mental health support?
Well, as a pastor and a therapist, I would say it's a mixed bag. Sometimes the church, which is the place of support, is also the place of bondage. That sometimes how we see God, how we see Bible, doesn't aid in mental health, but it aids in furthering that stigma. And when you talk about stigma, when it comes to Black and brown communities, it rides on the backs of stereotypes that are ingrained in our community based upon white supremacist framing. And so we already feel bad about ourselves, already feel bad because we have been told that our lips are too big or our hips are too wide. And then we come to church, and church, if you're not careful, can become a place of respectability that makes it hard to be authentic, because the last thing we want to do as Black folk is to stand out and be different. And so it's a mixed bag. The church, for me, is a place of healing, but it's also a place that has to go through some deconstructive work so that it becomes a place for everybody. And we are able to understand the true mission, I'm talking church now, of that man from Galilee, which was bigger than what we often attribute to.
Thank you for that, Pastor. And you know, I think it's so important to hear that from a pastor as well, because oftentimes we're not talking to our pastor about those things. And it is, from a faith perspective, important for me to hear that from you. So thank you. As we continue to talk about mental health, we also talk about what it's like for our men folks. How can we encourage them to seek support, and what does that look like? How does mental health really show up in our men folk, and what can we look for and what can we do? I mean, both of you can answer this. I'm going to leave it open.
Well, I'm laughing because Monday we're actually going to be doing, we've been working doing a monthly males group, our Man Up group at the Learning Collaborative in Greer Heights, working with dads there who have young kids. And part of what I can say, what we can do is we can allow men to have access to the full menu of emotions, right? And when I say that, most of us, from the time that we're little boys, we get what I kind of call the bar menu, right? You get to be excited at a sporting event, you know, and you get to be angry, right? But what we don't get to do is recognize what's underneath the anger, right? Because anger is often a secondary emotion, it's kind of a shield. What little boys and men are not allowed to be is scared, sad, hurt, embarrassed. And so what you get instead is we're angry, so we got to act out in violence. Act out in violence towards each other, act out in violence towards you, act out in violence towards ourselves. You know, again, whether that's self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. You know, again, I say it all the time. People say things like men are rational and women are emotional. And I'll go in the audience, people are like, yeah. But I'll start breaking things down and I'll say, all right, so ask me this. Who leads in deaths committed by homicide? Men. Who leads in death by suicide? Men. Who leads in death by heart attack? Men. Who has the highest rates of substance abuse? men, right? The reality is, it's not that men are not emotional, it's that we're not allowed and given the space and the tools to do it in a healthy way. And so what I would say is we got to reclaim what the term man up means. To me, man up means we create a space where we can be authentically vulnerable with each other, lift each other up and not shame each other. And also, we also need the same thing from our women as well, right? Like, so if that man is actually showing some vulnerability and emotion, don't call him sassy for doing that, right? You can't say you want to get rid of toxic masculinity, but then when a guy becomes vulnerable, you call him sassy, right? You got to pick a lane. Like, so we got to start getting real about this because we've internalized a lot of this stuff and we pass it down. And so what we're trying to do now is not only do the work with the men there, but then they can pass that down to their young children as well, so they can start earlier. Instead of us having to unlearn as we're adults, we can learn it the right way as young boys.
I would like to add to that, Mr. Perry, that when you talk about Black male masculinity, it is good, it's not good, but it's helpful to know that what it means to be a Black male has never been in our possession apart from white supremacist understanding. In other words, our Black manhood has always been against the backdrop of what they say a man should be. Now, having said that, it makes it very difficult when you're working with Black men because the culture, the history, the intergenerational trauma that is passed down, and historically, we're just now really better understanding how bad that is. We have a struggle with helping Black men move from fear to authenticity. And that is a real struggle. If we really want to do the work of Black men find strength to get help, we need to do some deep diving into not what's happening now, but the context of their raising and how the environment has shaped them as well.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Now, this question wasn't on there because I just thought about it. Strong Black woman. I don't know about everybody else in the room, but I don't want to be strong anymore. So, Dr. Shaw, how does being a strong Black woman translate for us into the mental health space? What can we do to become soft?
The question of being a strong Black woman is, once again, it's a myth that, as we were talking about before, like from our struggles from history, we've had to wear all these different roles, and we were never able to just kind of put down all of our bags that we carry. We don't need to carry all those bags. You need to carry yourself and bring up to yourself. Be in touch with yourself. Be aware of your emotions and what's going on. We can't be good caregivers if you can't take care of yourself. You can't be vulnerable with your spouse, your husband, your boyfriend, if you're not okay internally and working on your stuff. You can't change the narrative for your daughter, for your son about what a healthy relationship looks like if you're not aware of what you bring, if you're not aware of your trauma, if you're not aware of the collective trauma that we have as the people, which is what they were alluding to when we talk about where we come from. All of this mental health is not ours, and it's not accepted when we go to conferences professionally and we talk about what our stuff is. A lot of times it's not accepted, and we have treatments that we might do in our spaces that if you go to a Caucasian therapist, it'll be like, that's not treatment, but it is, because we're a soul, we're energy, we're people. And so as women and as men, like we have to tap into parts of that when we come to therapy. And part of our job as women is, yes, we can be nurturers, but we can also be strong. Like there's room for all verses of us. And as human beings, like when we look at Afrocentric psychology, it talks about what does it mean to be human? Not be a woman, not be a man, but be human. And being human has emotions, love, sad, disgust. It's okay to have all those. That's what life is. Life comes with all of those things and challenges at different times. So there's no need to have like, I gotta be this today, I gotta do this for my kid, or I need to set this person. No, we don't need all that. Just be aware of where you are and be able to articulate. Take some time, meditate, either with a Bible, with yourself. Go to your therapist and let them know what's going on for you. But we don't have to be strong. You need to be yourself. You need to find out who are you? Who are you? Who are you as a woman, as Sarah, as Diamond? Like, there's an authenticity that we need to have as women as well, and be able to support each other in our own development. And what does that mean? Once again, you talk about socialization, it's the same thing. The idea of womanhood and femininity is not ours. It belongs to white women, not us. Now, we do have more frameworks of what it means to be a Black woman, but we still need to do a lot of community research to get more of a collective understanding. What does it mean to be a Black man? And develop theories and develop more therapeutic, evidence-based. Well, that means like, oh, they give the stamp of approval that you can use this in therapy. But the same thing needs to be done for women. We don't have to carry these bags. There's no need to. You're a human being. Show up when you're sad. Show up when you're happy, when you want to show love. Like, that is okay. Like, you are allowed to have all of those emotions all in one. You don't have to be the carrier of everything. That's not what you're supposed to be. That's not humanity.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. So because we care about the entire family, and we know that our young people are really dealing with unprecedented pressures from social media, from making straight A's in school and their identities, what should parents really look out for in their children and as caregivers to help support them through any type of mental health struggles?
I have 6, so I think I can talk about that a little bit. What I would like to say, and this may be counterintuitive a little bit, I do feel that perhaps our children with may be in a better position than their parents were to step into vulnerability. That perhaps what we can do best to help our children deal with their own mental health is to appreciate they're having those conversations among their friends. They understand some things that are happening. And then to allow ourselves to do that really difficult thing, which is to move from being the disciplinarian only, but also to being somebody who shares and we're vulnerable. Mr. Perry mentioned talking with his son. All of that is important. But I do feel that with all the challenges, our children might be that group that really moves in such a way that we are blown away when it's told. They got it. They really understand it. Now, I know there are statistics. We do have to be concerned about queer youth because that is a population. And I would say Black youth, the number of suicides is going up. However, against even that backdrop, there is a lot of work being done among themselves to really better understand how to connect, how to build community. And I would say that, look at the election. I don't want to bring up the person's name, but look at what happened in New York City last week. That was young people driven. Yeah. And I think that suggests they really are not as broken as their mom or dads were.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So, because, yes, please add.
I'll just add one quick thing to that. I think one thing we definitely can do as grown-ups is we can honor the things that cause them stress. I think part of what my struggle was, because again, I was the first person to go to counseling in my family, right? I wasn't the first person who could have benefited from counseling, but I was the first to do it, right? Because again, we prayed about it and you move on. And again, what do you have anything to be stressed about? Your ancestors went through so much more, right? And I had that played out in my own head. Nobody had to say that to me, right? So I think one of the things we can do is we can honor the stresses they have and not downplay them. Well, you don't pay no bills. You don't, like, I get it. Again, trust me, if somebody pays a lot of bills, I know that stress, right? But it also doesn't mean that they don't also have stress when it's more competitive to get in college. You make less money when you come out. You're not quite sure what to do with this AI world and everything else. You got social media that makes it different. So it's one thing when you got beat up before and people whispered about it. Now they have videos that get circulated everywhere about it, right? So again, we have to not downplay the stress that our young folks have, and we got to join with them. If they're willing to share that with you, take that as an honor, partner with them, validate it, and then figure out how do you support them.
Because we're all people of color on this panel, how important is representation in this mental health space? I know for me personally, I sought out someone of color for me to be able to talk to, because it's so much easier to explain and not to explain the colloquialisms of our race, and be able to speak freely and not have a side eye when I'm talking about what I'm feeling. So how important is that for our community, and what does that look like for you?
For me, just coming up in my training, I was told that in our community, we will stay longer in therapy when we have a therapist that looks like us. We are more willing to go. But I will say, when you break down the numbers of this profession, there's not a whole lot of us in it, and especially Black men. And they are needed. And there are so many nuances in our culture that it is very important that we go to see people that look like this, so we understand some of our shared experiences. But I can't go to a female supervisor like I had one time and tell her about a racist incident at the doctor when I was pregnant with my daughter. She didn't understand that. And so it's really important, because you want to be heard. And sometimes, yes, we all are human, but our experiences are so different. And there is something as racial trauma that is real, as we all know. And oftentimes that can be swept underneath the rug and just, oh, it's a bad experience. No, it's not a bad experience. So it really can validate what is going on for you as a person.
The right therapist is important. Cultural competency is important. But I also want to stress the awareness of intersectionality, that we are not one thing, we are many things. So if you're looking for a therapist and the only issue you want to address is issues based upon race, maybe that's a good issue. But what if you present with the intersections of being female, Black, and queer? There's a good chance your therapist may not be Black, but has a good understanding of queer identity. And so if you focus on one flat dynamic, to be transparent, my therapist that I'm trying to see again, but you see me, you kind of run from it, you know what I'm saying? But she is a white female, and absolutely awesome. That so it's more complex than just saying, and I appreciate, sister, because it is real. Color is important, but also, can a person handle my total self? Because if I can't bring my full self to therapy, why in the heck am I in here? And so we often don't even bring our full selves. The last point, I have a doctor. I have had a doctor, the same doctor, for 15 years. To be honest, the practice is horrible. But he is horrible. You get there, I won't say a name. You get there early, you wait late, and you sometimes get overlooked, right? But here's the deal. I go to him still, even though the practice is horrible, because we can talk at a deep level. And I can tell him any and everything. And that's important to have even in a therapist.
So as we're winding down, I have two more questions that I'm going to ask everyone. And because we know how deeply our mental health is connected with our physical health, oftentimes we don't connect those dots of what that looks like. What are some things that we need to pay attention to is in our physical health that could be triggered from our mental health?
We're just so unique, right? It is connected. Our high blood pressure is tied to our systemic reality. Our anxiety is tied to all of that. The challenge is, and this is where it gets a little tricky, that we have adopted, if we are church, a dualistic understanding that separates body from soul. Yes, I said that. And what we do is we elevate those things that are spiritual, but we downplay the body because that's where things, bad stuff happen. If I'm going to sin, I'm going to sin with my body. And so because of that, we may shout in church on Sunday, but won't check our breast on Sunday night. Yeah. We may be passionate in some experience, but won't go get tested for STD. And so what happens is we need to understand health, mental health, bodily health is all related. And if you want to take care of a black person's body, take care of their mind. Won't take care of their mind, take care of their body.
Last question, because there may be someone that is afraid to seek out help in our community. What is the first step toward therapy and support, and how would you direct people today? And I will ask the entire panel for this.
I think the first step is one, being in rooms like this, normalizing that this is a real experience that people have, and that making room that it's okay. Everybody goes through things, and it's okay to ask for help. So that is one piece of advice that I'd say. So
I'll even kind of even go into even how I ended up going to therapy. You know, I would say I was in the midst of just complete isolation, right? I was deep in the shame. I was avoiding everybody, avoiding friends, avoiding calls from home. And I had a friend of mine, like only time I would leave my dorm room was to grab a box from the dining hall with a hood on my head and come right back to my dorm room. I tell my clients all the time I was living like an addict without getting high, right? And I had a friend that said, hey, let's go to dinner. And I was like, oh, I'll get a box. And she's like, no, we're going to go and we're going to actually sit down. And so we sit down and I'm talking about what's happening. And I'm like, no, I think I'm going to transfer out of here. I'm just going to finish flunking out and transfer. And again, that's why you know you're not thinking rational. So you about to get a bunch of F's and then try to transfer somewhere, right? But it made sense to me at the time, right? You know, and she just looked at me. She's like, you know, this doesn't sound like you. Don't you think maybe you should talk to somebody? A very small phrase, went and talked to the dean. Now they led me to get counseling because it was like, if I don't do it, I can't come back, right? But one of the things that for me now is I'll just say that I just kind of talk plainly and say, you know, when it comes to counseling, you don't have to look at it like a marriage. Look at it like, hey, I just need to go on a first date. Like, I think sometimes we fear going to counseling because it's like, I got to pick the right person. And if I don't get the right person, then I'm stuck with them and everything else like that. And it's like, no, it's kind of like, you know how you take your car to get an oil change? Go there, get an assessment, go talk to somebody. And you may talk to them. And after that, they may say, actually, you're doing pretty well. You don't actually need anything. Or you may talk to them and they say, hey, this is how we can help you, right? And so I think we kind of lower the expectation of what it is because people feel like if I go, I've got to pick the perfect person. That person may not be the right person, but you know what? Hey, I may go and I find somebody else. And I think we just kind of lower it and just say, hey, you got a lot you're carrying. I know for me, it's a lot to carry it all on my own. I think you deserve some support. The same way you support everybody else, maybe it's a chance for you to let somebody else support you and then kind of go from there.
Because of the social determinants of health, there is the possibility that persons will not go to therapy because that I can't afford. The reality is a lot of folk go to therapy who can't afford it, but there are community resources that are available. One of the things that we're going through right now is this whole conversation about the ACA. Quiet as it's kept, the ACA is a game changer. That it allows for the first time persons who need it to access mental health. So part of what we need to do is just help folk understand, make the connection, the resources to come. One of the things I like about working with Mr. Perry's agency is money is not an issue. Now hear me, therapists should get paid. And the sad reality is Black therapists, we are uniquely underpaid because we tend to want to give it away. And but I like Mr. Perry's approach. You get the client, I'll find the funds. And that's what we need to start helping folk to understand. Money is everywhere, right? But just take that step and just be honest. I can't afford but $10 a week. Okay, well, give me $10 a week. Now I'm gonna get my other. Hear me, but give me the 10 and we could work on the other, right? But that's part of it. Don't be afraid of not being able to afford it. Just know that there are community resources here.
An opportunity for questions, but I would like to end with, how can people find you?
You can find us at noramentalhealth.com. We actually have a table set up in the gym. So if you all want to know what we do at Nora Mental Health, some of the support groups that we run, and how we're getting involved in the community, we have some resources for you. And then also social media, Instagram, that's where you can find us.
All right. I'll get the simplest way. If you go online, you can look up justinperrycounseling.com. So again, same name, justinperrycounseling.com. And it'll give the website. You will find myself on there. You'll find Cliff on there. We got several other Black clinicians on there as well. The Instagram is Justin Perry Counseling as well. I broke all the rules about not using your name in it. So I was like, that keeps it simple. So look us up on there. For people who need a phone number, 704-908-4061. Again, my old school people like me, 704-908-4061. So you can call us, you go on the website, and we'll find a way to get connected.
I'll say, well, what gives you hope about this conversation?
The fact that we're having this conversation, because I mean, for me growing up, when people use the term mental health, it was always tied to crazy, right? Nobody would say it, and mental health was it was like a noun, right? Almost, it was like, oh, and I see a hand up or whatever there, so I missed it. But I think, to me, the fact that we are having these conversations plainly, the fact that when we get together with groups of Black men, like, we have to get kicked out of the room because it's like, well, we set aside 90 minutes. Wait, we already done? And so, like, the thing is, what I know is that when we get the opportunity, well, we're craving it, right? And so to me, that's what gives me hope, is because I think we're at a place where we can kind of tap into this differently.
First of all, thank you all for sharing your expertise and opinions with us today. My question is, do you have any advice for caregivers, family members that have other family members that have mental health issues? Just like you said, I have a family member, and my uncle, he doesn't want anybody to know. And I constantly tell him, this is like treating a disease. Don't try to hide it. It's okay. So any advice for family members and caregivers?
I'm a caregiver. My mom has dementia and she lives with us. And I know there's unique challenges around being a caregiver. The first thing I would say about being a caregiver is you can't fix what you can't fix, but you can always take care of yourself. So I do know I was called last week to go on a pastoral visit with a person who is in a deep, dark place, not suicidal, but just shut in. And no matter how much we try, that person is not moving. So the challenge is for the daughter and the sister, you all get the help you need to better handle that. Sometimes we want to be a savior when we need to go ahead and first save ourselves. And by modeling that, folk may come around.